Hello students, I'm Imkong Tenlapungan from Department of Anthropology, University of Delhi. Today I'm going to speak on the module International Classification of Diseases and Causes of Death from the paper Demographic Anthropology. Well, the learning objectives of the module are to understand what is international classification of diseases, to gain knowledge about its historical development, to know about the underlying principles and structure of classification of international classification of diseases, to differentiate between international classification of disease and diagnostic and statistical manual, to acquaint ourselves with the versions of ICT uses and limitations of ICT, to comprehend the future prospects of international classification of disease. Firstly, let us discuss briefly about international classification of diseases. It is a diagnostic tool which is being in use in the field of medicine all across the globe. Currently, the International Classification of Disease is in its 10th revision and is referred to as ICD-10. This revision handbook classifies medical diseases. This revision handbook classifies medical diseases and mental health conditions and provides standardized descriptions for them. It also monitors the incidence and prevalence rate of physical and mental concerns in the world. It is published by the most prestigious health-related organization of the world, that is, World Health Organization. The ICT comes in 43 languages and is being used by the officials of the World Health Organization. ICT has been designed to encourage international comparability in the compilation, dispensation, classification, interpretation, and presentation of world mortality statistics. This also provides a format for reporting the causes of death, for making the death certificates. Further, the conditions reported are then transformed into medical codes with the use of a classification structure and by the selection and amendment rules which are present in the applicable revision of the ICT, which is also published by the World Health Organization. These coding rules are provided to improve on the efficacy of mortality statistics. This is done by giving preference to particular categories, by consolidating the conditions, and by selecting a certain cause of death from the reported series of conditions in a systematic manner. The single selected cause which is used for tabulation is called the underlying cause of death, and the other reported causes are the non-underlying causes of death. The amalgamation of underlying and non-underlying causes of death is then known as multiple causes of death. The ICT is a global standard investigative classification for all kinds of epidemiological and health management purposes. This includes the examination of general health condition of the population and the monitoring of incidence and prevalence rates of the diseases and other health problems related to other variables like the characteristics and circumstances of the affected individuals. ICT is progressively being used in research and for clinical purposes, for defining the diseases and to examine the pattern of disease. It is also used for maintaining healthcare, monitoring the results, and allocating resources. Now let us have a look at its historical development. The classification of diseases goes back to 1600 in England, where John Cront made an attempt to learn the statistics of disease. But his data lacked statistics on mortality data by age, and he estimated on information which he did not gather. However, Cront's work contributed to some extent in medical progress. During 1800, William Farr also tried to form a better, more uniform categorization of diseases. At that time, diseases were repeatedly described imprecisely or called by a variety of names, and he attempted to identify the significance of naming and describing disease in an organized manner. The disease classification developed by FAR was ultimately adopted by the International Statistical Congress, and later on it was known as the International List of Causes of Death. By the year 1933, the United States had started to compile an annual mortality statistics for the whole nation. In 1948, WHO adopted the Manual of the International Statistical Classification of Diseases, Injuries and Causes of Death, which marked the commencement of international collaboration in the sphere of health statistics. This led to establishment of national committees on health statistics in several countries around the world. This provided a link between these national institutions and the World Health Organization. Currently, the ICD-10 is being in use on international level by physicians, nurses, researchers, and mental health professionals to evaluate medical data and provide uniformity in the collection and classification of mortality statistics on an international level. Periodic revisions are implemented to keep the manual in compatibility with the advancement in medicine. The ICD is at present the most extensively used statistical classification system for diseases in the world. Some countries like Australia, Canada, and the United States have designed adaptations of ICD for their own country respectively. These manuals consist of numerous procedure codes for classification of operational or diagnostic processes. International nomenclature of diseases. In 1970, the Council for International Organizations of Medical Sciences started the preparation and research on international nomenclature of diseases. 5 volumes of INT were issued during 1972 and 1974 by CIOMS and its member organizations. The main objective of the IND is to provide a single name for each morbid entity. The chief criteria for choosing these names is that it should be applicable to only one disease and not repeated for any other categorization. The nomenclature should be unambiguous, self-descriptive, and based on the cause of the disease. However, many of these widely used names do not fully fulfill this criteria but are being used as synonyms. The INT is projected to be complementary to the ICD. The IND terminologies are given preference in ICD. The list of volumes of INT published till the year 1992 is infectious diseases, bacterial diseases in 1985, mycosis 1982, viral diseases 1983, parasitic diseases 1987, diseases of the lower respiratory tract in 1979, diseases of the digestive system 1990, cardiac and vascular diseases 1989, metabolic, nutritional and endocrine disorders 1991, diseases of the kidney, the lower urinary tract and the male genital system 1992, diseases of the female genital system 1992. Now let us discuss the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual. The Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, which is currently in its 5th edition, provides a uniform criteria for the identification and diagnosis of mental health conditions. Before 1980, the diagnosis of mental health conditions was largely influenced by psychoanalysis. In 1980, DSM-3 was published, in which the American Psychiatric Association took measures for describing and classifying the mental health conditions by forming common groups and clusters of symptoms. A similarity has been seen in the layout of the recent DSM and the ICD, owing to the collaborative work undertaken by the WHO and the APA. However, DSM stays there as a separate classification method for mental health disorders. The ICT is very cost-effective and is widely available at a low cost to a larger group of population across the world, leading to widest distribution of the manual worldwide. However, there is a contradiction on the use of ICT and DSM between healthcare professionals, where many professionals find that it is unnecessary to have two different classification systems for mental health issues, while some believe that DSM is also as useful and important as ICT because it contains information on the symptoms related to mental health conditions, which will be helpful in psychiatric diagnosis. Now let us discuss the versions of ICD. First, we have ICD-6. The ICD-6 was published in 1949. It was the first manual which was designed for reporting the morbidity rates and statistics. The International List of Causes of Death was renamed International Statistical Classification of Diseases. There was a division between code sections of injuries and the associated accidents, leading to formation of two separate chapters for injuries and their external causes. In this manual, a section on mental disorders was added for the first time, which consisted of codes for mental health conditions and its morbidity. ICD-7. In February 1955, in Paris, the International Conference for the 7th Revision of the International Classification of Disease was held under the guidance of the World Health Organization. On the recommendations of the WHO Expert Committee on Health Statistics, the 7th revision in the ICD saw essential changes and amendments of the errors and inconsistencies which were found in the previous version. Next, we have ICD-8A. The WHO convened the 8th Revision Conference in Geneva in July 1965. In comparison to the 7th revision, this revision was considered more essential. However, the basic structure of the classification and the general principle of classification of diseases remained unchanged. After the 7th and 8th revisions of ICT were being utilized in full swing, the usage of ICT for indexing medical records at hospitals increased at a rapid pace, and many countries decided on preparing a national adaptation of ICT which will provide them with detailed information on the application of ICT according to the disease and injuries which have a higher rate of occurrence in those countries. Beginning in 1968, ICD-8A served as the foundation for coding diagnostic data for mortality and morbidity statistics in the United States. Next, we have ICD-9. The International Conference for the 9th Revision of the International Classification of Disease was also convened by the World Health Organization and was conducted in Geneva from 30th September to 6th October 1975. The enormous growth of interest in ICT has led to coming up of suggestions, critiques, and advices regarding the layout of ICT. Therefore, modification of classification and introduction of special codes have been done provisionally to cater to the suggestions by the healthcare professionals, researchers, and scientists. On the other hand, there were representations from countries and areas which considered such detailed classification were unnecessary and irrelevant, but they needed an adaptation of a classification of ICT for their country for assessment of progress of their country in healthcare and disease control. The final proposal of the 9th revision was accepted by the conference in 1978. The basic structure of ICT was retained and some details were added regarding the 4-digit subcategories, and a 5-digit subdivision was made optional. The 9th revision consists of an alternative method for classification of diagnostic statements, which include information on general diseases and manifestation of disease in a specific organ. This will provide the users an additional advantage of producing indexes and statistics for medical care. This system is referred to as the Taker and Asterisk system and has been taken in the 10th revision also. Various technical innovations have been added to 9th revision so that it can be used more often in a variety of situations. The 9th revision was eventually replaced by the ICD-10. The ICD-10 version is currently in use by the WHO and most countries worldwide. ICD-10. Developmental work on ICD-10 started in the year 1983. The 10th revision was certified by the 43rd World Health Assembly in May 1990, and it came into use in WHO from 1994. The latest classification system permits more than 155,000 distinct codes and allows the tracking of a variety of novel diagnoses and procedures. This is an important expansion from the ICD-9, where only 17,000 codes were available for classification. WHO managed to put several materials of ICD-10 online so that the users can have an easy access to the manual, training guidelines and files which could be easily downloaded. The ICD-10 was adopted by many countries in the world very swiftly. ICD-10-AM and ICD-10-CA have been used by Australia and New Zealand and Canada respectively. ICD-10-AM, that is Australia and New Zealand, ICD-10-CA, Canada, ICD-10-CM, that is USA, and many more are the country-specific adaptations of the ICD. Now let us discuss about the uses of international classification of diseases. Each country which has adopted ICD uses it for various aspects based on the availability of data on disease and injuries. Maturely, most of the countries utilize the entire ICD system, whereas some use the ICD in hospitals or for assessment of morbidity only. The United States Department of Health and Human Services felt the need for improvising the ICD so that it provides better clinical information. They developed under the 9th revision of ICD a clinical modification manual, that is ICD-10-CM. These clinical manifestation codes were relatively accurate and provided stronger analysis. This version was extensively being used by the hospitals and healthcare facilities for reporting morbidity. In 2015, the ICD-9-CM was replaced by the newer version ICD-10-CM. The ICD is used for the classification of diseases and other health anomalies which have been recorded on various health and clinical record sheets and databases. Originally, the ICD was used to classify the probable causes of mortality which were recorded at the time of the registration of death in the death certificates. Later on, the scope of ICD extended to inclusion of diagnosis in morbidity as well. It is important to note that although the ulterior motive of designing the ICD has been to classify diseases and injuries with a recognized diagnosis, not every problem or issue for coming into contact with the health services may be classified in this manner. As a result, the ICD facilitates for a wide range of signs, symptoms, abnormal results, complaints, and social situations which may arise in the possession of a diagnosis on health-related records. Therefore, the ICT can be used for classification of data which is recorded under the subcategories such as diagnosis, reason for admission, conditions treated, and reason for consultation. These subcategorizations may appear on a wide range of health records using which statistics and other health-related information can be derived. Now let us look into the limitations of ICT. The ICT is neither planned nor appropriate for indexing of distinctive clinical entities. The ICT cannot be used judiciously in the studies of financial aspects, for example, billing or resource allocation. Detailed information on certain specialties is lacking in the ICT. The ICT is not helpful when it comes to the description of functioning and disability as an attribute of health. Health interventions and the possible reasons for disease encounter are also missing from ICT. Now let us look into the future prospects of ICT. The ICT undergoes periodic revisions to incorporate amendments to be in order with the continuous changes in the dynamic field of medicine. Although the overall content of the ICT-9 is similar to the newer version ICT-10, there are also slight differences between these two versions. First, the ICT-10 consists of 3 volumes, while ICT-9 is a 2-volume set. Another difference is that the ICT-10 contains alphanumeric categories, while the ICT-9 has numeric categories. Third, some chapters have been reorganized, several titles have been renamed, and a few conditions have been regrouped in ICT-10. Fourth, the number of categories in ICT-10 has almost doubled relative to the categories in ICT-9. Fifth, moderately minor changes in the coding rules for mortality have been done. ICT-11. The World Health Organization is at present preparing for the 11th revision of the International Classification of Diseases. The progress is going on at an internet-based workspace known as the ICAT, Collaborative Authoring Tool Platform, which is similar to a wiki. However, ICAT needs more configurations and has a peer review process. Through this platform, the WHO collaborates with other interested parties in this project. The final draft of the ICT-11 classification system is expected for submission to World Health Assembly for official approval by 2017. A review of the primary draft was completed in April 2015, and the final version, ICT-11, will be launched by 2018 after the approval of the final draft by the WHO. The ICT-11 will include definitions of all the listed disease entities. These definitions will provide main description and direction on the meaning of the category in human readable terms, so that it is easy for the users to understand and apply these classifications in a practical scenario. This is advantageous as the previous version only contained title headings but no descriptions. ICT-11 with the definitions will be more subjective and aid up to the understanding of the users in a comprehensive way. Each definition will have a uniform structure based on a template. The definition will consist of 2 parts, a standard definition template and a content model. All the features will be exemplified in the content model. The content model is a well-organized framework which captures the knowledge that justifies the definition of a listed disease entity in ICT and allows computerization. Each ICT entity can be viewed from diverse parameters. In this version, there will be 13 defined parameters included in the content model to describe particular categories in the ICT. These are ICT entity title, fully specified name, classification properties like disease, disorder, injury, etc. Textual definitions, a brief standard depiction, terms, synonyms of the terms, other inclusion and exclusions, body system or structure description that includes anatomy and physiology, temporal properties like acute, chronic or other, severity of subtypes properties like mild, moderate, severe or other scales, manifestation properties such as signs and symptoms, causal properties such as etiology, infectious, external cause, etc., functioning properties like impact on daily life, activities and participation, specific condition properties, for example, those that relate to pregnancy, etc. Then we have treatment properties, which are specific treatment considerations, for example, resistance. Next, we have diagnostic criteria, which are operational definitions for assessment. Now, ICT 11 portrays to have a more refined architecture than its older versions and is consistent with the current generation of users as a digital resource. The core of the system is referred to as the foundation component. It is a semantic arrangement of words and terms where several given terms may have more than one parent. To tackle the prerequisite which statistical classifications display, the ICT 11 assesses the serialization of the foundation component into a random number of linearization which has been optimized for use cases. The main linearization that is currently called the joint linearization for morbidity and mortality statistics is a tabular format with which most conventional users will become familiar. Now let us summarize this module. It is indicative through the above module that ICT is a diagnostic tool which is used as a global standard for investigative classification. It is used for epidemiological as well as health management purposes. The ICT has been a brainchild of WHO and is extensively used by the officials there. Currently, the ICT is available in 43 languages and is being used in more than 100 countries globally. On the basis of the critics and suggestions by the researchers, doctors, medical professionals, the ICT undergoes periodic revisions. The revisions reflect the progress in health science and medical practice. The ICT is constantly looking for suggestions from people from varied disciplines because it develops a diverse health perspective. The knowledge from varied fields will help in building a better classification which will be inclusive. The shared process will lead to a global consensus on how diseases and health-related problems are defined and recorded. ICT is a chance to be part of the international collaboration that will lead to more consistent and systematic collection of health information. So that's all for this module. Thank you so much for listening.